The nuclear crisis that has been simmering for months just exploded into the international spotlight. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has effectively blocked United Nations nuclear inspectors from accessing Iran's most critical nuclear facilities, despite signing what appeared to be a breakthrough agreement just yesterday. This isn't just another diplomatic setback. We're looking at a potential nuclear standoff that could reshape Middle Eastern geopolitics and trigger an unprecedented international response. The stakes have never been higher, and the clock is ticking toward what many experts fear could become an irreversible crisis. Yesterday, the world celebrated what seemed like a diplomatic victory. An agreement between Tehran and the United Nations atomic watchdog appeared to provide the UN agency access to all of Iran's nuclear facilities and require Iran to report on the whereabouts of material that was at sites attacked by Israel earlier this year. International Atomic Energy Agency Director General Rafael Grossi and Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi signed this framework in Cairo, with cameras capturing what looked like a moment of breakthrough diplomacy. But within hours, that optimism crumbled completely. Iran has not yet given permission to IAEA inspectors to visit its nuclear facilities, despite an agreement to resume cooperation, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said on Wednesday. The revelation that Iran was backing away from the agreement sent shockwaves through diplomatic circles and triggered emergency meetings in Washington, London, Paris, and Berlin. What makes this crisis particularly alarming is the context surrounding Iran's nuclear program. Inspectors have been unable to verify Tehran's near-bomb-grade stockpile since the start of Israel's 12-day war with Iran. This means the international community has been operating blind regarding Iran's most dangerous nuclear materials for weeks. The situation became even more complex when we learned the full extent of Iran's recent obstructionism. The IAEA confirmed that its inspectors, who had been stationed in Tehran since the outbreak of military conflict in mid-June, were forced to leave Iran on July 4th. This unprecedented expulsion occurred just days after Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian signed controversial legislation effectively halting cooperation with international nuclear monitors. The timing of these developments cannot be overlooked. The attacks by Israel and a round of bombing by the U.S. appear to have damaged or destroyed Iran's nuclear facilities, including underground uranium enrichment sites, but UN inspectors have not been given access to these. Iran's refusal to allow inspection of these bomb-damaged sites has raised serious questions about what Tehran is attempting to hide. Intelligence analysts are particularly concerned about Iran's uranium stockpile. The IAEA has repeatedly warned that inspectors have been unable to verify Iran's growing stockpile of highly enriched uranium, calling the situation a matter of serious concern. Without verification, the international community has no way of knowing whether Iran has crossed the threshold toward weapons-grade uranium production. The legal framework surrounding this crisis adds another layer of complexity. On June 25, 2025, Iran's parliament approved a controversial bill to suspend most cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency. This legislative action provided the legal foundation for Iran's current defiance, but also violated multiple international agreements and United Nations Security Council resolutions. Iranian officials have attempted to justify their position by claiming security concerns. Officials confirmed that all IAEA inspections have effectively ceased, citing damage to nuclear facilities from the Israeli UDS airstrikes. Iranian authorities claim the agency's demand to visit bomb sites is an attempt to assess the extent of the damage, which Tehran refuses to allow. However, international law experts argue that this reasoning has no legal foundation and violates Iran's obligations under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. The international response has been swift and increasingly harsh. The UN-backed atomic watchdog passed a resolution on Thursday declaring that Iran has not complied with its obligations regarding nuclear non-proliferation. This formal declaration opens a door for additional sanctions and potential military options that were previously off the table. European allies are now openly discussing the nuclear option that everyone hoped to avoid: snapback sanctions. These automatic sanctions would reimpose all previous United Nations restrictions on Iran's nuclear program, essentially ending any remaining diplomatic pathway forward. The mere discussion of snapback sanctions has triggered emergency meetings across European capitals and urgent consultations with Washington. Military analysts warn that Iran's defiance could trigger a broader regional conflict, with Israel having already demonstrated willingness to strike Iranian nuclear facilities and the United States maintaining a significant military presence in the region. The potential for escalation remains extremely high. The fact that Iran is now refusing to account for nuclear material at previously bombed sites suggests Tehran may be attempting to salvage or relocate critical components. Economic implications are already becoming apparent across global markets. Oil prices have surged on fears of regional instability, while defense contractors have seen significant increases in their stock values. Several major corporations with Middle Eastern operations have quietly begun contingency planning for potential military action. The crisis has also exposed serious gaps in international monitoring capabilities. The only site inspected by the IAEA since the war has been the Bushehr nuclear power plant, which operates with Russian technical assistance. This limited access means the international community has virtually no real-time intelligence about Iran's nuclear activities at its most sensitive facilities. Congressional leaders from both parties are demanding immediate action. Emergency hearings have been scheduled to examine America's options, ranging from enhanced sanctions to potential military strikes. Intelligence officials have briefed key lawmakers on what they describe as an increasingly dangerous situation that requires urgent international coordination. The next 72 hours are being described by diplomatic sources as crucial. Iran faces a stark choice: allow immediate and unconditional access to international inspectors or face consequences that can include coordinated international military action. Foreign Minister Araghchi's defiant stance suggests Tehran is prepared to escalate rather than comply. As this crisis continues to unfold, the fundamental question remains whether diplomatic pressure can still prevent what many fear could become an irreversible slide toward military confrontation. The international community is watching closely as Iran makes decisions that could determine the future of nuclear non-proliferation efforts worldwide. The stakes could not be higher, and time is rapidly running out for a peaceful resolution to this unprecedented nuclear standoff.